They called him the Diesel.
Crank up that diesel. Let's go.
He leaned across the table and he goes, "You need to get me back there. I'll make you famous."
And to Riggins, good hole. He's got the first down to the 40. He's gone. The 35, the 30, the 20. He's gone. He's gone.
It's Riggo the Diesel.
Hello and welcome to Riggo the Diesel. I am that guy, John Riggins, here with you. Larry Michael, your voice of the Washington Redskins, is joining me as he always does. This is season 2, episode 40, or if you've been here from the very beginning, it is episode 80, and I find that hard to believe. And Larry, let's get down to business right out of the blocks here, because I think there's been some misinformation floating around as it regards one of my old teammates. What can you tell us about Dexter? Because a lot of people have been worried about him, and you get like this whole thing with the COVID-19. There's a lot of misinformation out there. Set the record straight for us, Larry.
Well, I will say this, and I'm going to actually let you actually set the record straight, because Todd, who obviously is on the show, and you have been in contact with Lydia, I do thank Todd for keeping us informed, because we got a lot of phone calls about Dexter over the weekend. People love Dexter Manley. He's one of the all-time most beloved Redskins, and the news is good. You got some news today, so you talked to Lydia, so why don't I let you do the honors?
Okay, very good. It's true. Dexter is in a hospital here in Washington. He was, I think, admitted last Friday. He'd been showing some signs. Lydia, his wife, took him down, and they kept him. And he is doing much better. And I'm not sure he was ever really that ill, but his oxygen levels were a little low. They put him on oxygen. He hasn't ever been on a ventilator. All this stuff is improving as we speak. So he's still got a little ways to go, but I don't think it's quite as it's not quite as dire, perhaps, as maybe some of the misinformation made it sound like over the weekend. So as always, we wish Dexter well. As you just said, Larry, I think that Dexter is every bit as popular today, I think, as he was back when he was sacking Danny White and winning championship games. So, as I was saying, we wish Dexter well and hope for him to get out of the hospital ASAP. Is there anything you can add?
I guess to clarify, yeah. Well, yeah, to clarify, I think, he did test positive for COVID-19, and as you said, he was taken to the hospital, but he's taking steps. Lydia has let us know that he's taking steps in his recovery. He appreciates everybody's concerns. I know that there's probably people who probably have tried to call Dexter over the last couple of days. And he is recovering. And the good news is he's recovering. And he hopes to be back talking smack real soon. And that is directly from Lydia.
I'm sure that's true, Larry. And if anything, Larry, I would guess that Dexter is probably down there wondering why more people aren't jamming the switchboard down at the hospital where he's staying, wondering about how he's doing. But yeah, I think that he's slowly but steadily making a recovery against this virus that's been ravaging the entire world. So, and along those lines, now there's been new things going on, obviously, in the country, as far as states are starting to open up some businesses. And as this relates to the NFL, maybe we can start here, so you can tell us about where the Redskins are at this particular moment as it relates to, I guess, the administrative side of things, and then you have actually, the sports, or I should say, the athlete side of things. So what are we looking at right now, Larry?
Well, as you can see with my background here, I'm not at Redskins Park. I'm actually in Nick Michael's room, my son's room here, and he no longer lives here because he's a 25-year-old man. But he does come back once in a while. Thus, big Kobe fan. He was a big Kobe fan. So we're not back yet. We do know that what we hear through government in the Virginia government, Northern Virginia is being dealt with differently than the state of Virginia, than the Commonwealth of Virginia, because of its proximity to Washington, D.C. and the population in this area. However, I think as some of these protocols are addressed and some of the needs for the facilities to be ready, and of course the government coming on board as well. And again, I don't have any information. I'm just trying to use my common sense approach that it won't be long till we're back at Redskins Park. Now, what does that mean? the National Football League, I think, has done a great job in trying to keep the level playing field by trying to keep on schedule. Things are taking steps. I'm not a big German soccer league fan, but I guess everybody's going to watch the German soccer league because they're playing over there and they're figuring out how to do it, and one step at a time. And then we still have no information as to when the football staffs will return. But that's going to be dealt with, I think, at the league level to make sure it's a level playing field. But I think you kind of get the feeling, and if you watch the news, almost every state has opened up to one degree or another. So I think it won't be long till we're back at Redskins Park. What complexion that'll take, whether that means half the people, a third of the people, a tenth of the people, essential employees, whatever that is determined to be. But we are getting close, and that is exciting because once you start letting people in the facilities, the scrub down and all the different things that have to take place in terms of sanitation going to be addressed, and our life will change. I think it will change. I got me 100 masks in my briefcase, and I think I'm going to be wearing those masks for as long as they tell me to wear the mask. I'm going to wear the mask, and I'm going to wash my hands 20 seconds, 20 times a day, and I think we'll get through it. I think people love the fact that football is moving forward. I think people love the fact that those sports were aired last week with NASCAR and golf, and every week there'll be something else. And again, I've said it before on Riggo the Diesel, we've got time. We've got the time before the season is a long way down the road. So good steps being taken, John, real good steps being taken.
Now, I read just today or yesterday where it said that the 22 out of the 32 teams in the NFL were going to open today. And I think, once again, that's just for administrative staff and that kind of thing. I'm wondering, is it because Northern Virginia is still in lockdown that the home team here, the Burgundy and Gold, you guys can't go to the office right now? Because I think the NFL says if your state, you're not in, contradicting state or local laws, that a limited amount of people can go into the office now at the different locations for the NFL. Are you up to speed on that?
Well, again, to the best of my ability, I think what you're talking about is you've got some locales that are able to open all businesses. And I think even in the state of Virginia, I know some private businesses have continued during the quarantine. I know people that, work in law offices, and maybe one person in an office, and they've gone to work when they've needed to. I do think that it's a little bit different with the football team because it really is about the safety of everybody, safety of the players, safety of the coaching staff, and you know how close you guys work together as a team. So I think all those things are being thought out. I think it would be a good idea to let support staff and other staff come in and kind of ease people back into what would have been their normal place of work. And as that happens, all these protocols get tested, whether they're taking temperatures or whether they're doing this and that. I know the Redskins have put a lot of time into the safety of the employees and the football team. And so I as an employee of the Redskins, I have no problem continuing to wait. When it's clear to go, we'll go. And whether that is directly impacted by what the governor says, but I've seen also that a lot of states, governors have acquiesced to mayors of cities or county executives have started taking the lead in their counties. That might be happening in Maryland with Governor Hogan. I've seen a few things where part of the state is open, and Montgomery County, where you live, isn't quite the same as another county, maybe in Western Maryland. And that kind of makes sense to me because there's so many more people. We really live in the DMV, Washington, D.C., all of us in this area. So it's all one big melting pot. So to let the local jurisdiction have their say, and then the NFL obviously is going to have their say, and they obviously want to make sure that everybody stays safe. And I think in time we'll be doing our show from Redskins Park. We'll see when, not sure when, but in time we will. And it is kind of weird though. You talk about 22 teams. What about we get down the road a little bit, and it's not all cities, and maybe you got a place like. And I see where the New York governor said we want sports to return, which I was happy to see. But, that was ground zero for all that time. So when do the Giants players return? I think there's a lot of scheming and planning that still has to take place.
Yeah, I know, and it's funny, how this thing has progressed, I guess, in a way, or regressed. I'm not sure exactly what to call, what we've all been through here for the past, I don't know, it's getting close to 8 to 10 weeks, something like that. But it seems like just what you were saying, that everything now is starting to turn into micromanagement as opposed to one dictate somebody at the government, that starts with the president, then it went to the governors, and as you said, the mayors, now county officials, and so on and so forth. It's like the county that I'm from in Kansas, Nemaha. I asked my brother the other day, and I think, and this is what was interesting. Nemaha, and there was one other county, and I think it was either Marshall, it might have been Brown, I can't remember, but no reports of any COVID-19 in these two counties. Doesn't mean that it can't show up, but clearly you would think then people out there are a little bit more relaxed in the fact that these are farming communities. I mean, for the most part, I would think maybe there's a little bit of difference in the farmers and how they go about conducting their business, i.e. they need to go into town and get seed, they get fertilizer, chemicals, and those kinds of things. But you can do that sitting in your truck, which is what they've always done to begin with, basically. So that part of the, commerce of the country, I would say really has been unaffected for the most part that I can see. But clearly, as we move forward here, and that's where it gets into, what the NFL is always concerned about is a level playing field for all the teams equally able to compete. And when if somebody, you're in a state where that state is ahead of everybody coronavirus wise, and they are allowed to do more things, then there's got to be some kind of a handicap, I guess, when it comes to everybody getting together. We'll take a little break here. It's something I want to bring up as far as where the players and the coaches are concerned. Let's get into that next, but go ahead, Larry. I know you've got something to give to us right now.
Yes, indeed, Riggo. You're ready to drive again. Enjoy the open road with the confidence and powerful performance of a new Honda. From stylish turbocharged sedans like the Accord and Civic to rugged all-wheel drive SUVs like the CR-V and HR-V, Pilot and Passport. Safety features like Honda Sensing, including a collision mitigation braking system, adaptive cruise control, Honda Lane Watch, and more. Get a great deal on your favorite Honda. Contact your local Honda dealer for more information or visit WashingtonAreaHondaDealers.com. And stay up to the minute with all the Redskins news this offseason. Download the official Redskins mobile app. Geographic and device restrictions apply. Data charges may apply as well.
Well, folks, we're kind of coming, I don't know if we're coming out of the end of the tunnel, but I think that we're starting to see a little bit of light and things are starting to open up. But O'Connor Plumbing has been on the job since day one. And if you have any kind of a plumbing problem right now, they've got some great deals. Like for the first, there's no financing for the first 6 months. They can work out. You can trade it in for an APB loan or an APR loan later on. They're willing to work with you, whatever you got it done. You can't mess with your plumbing, really. That's one thing that the house, it's really the heart of your home, really, as far as I'm concerned. So if you have any kind of problem and you've been reluctant to get it fixed, don't wait any longer. Give O'Connor Plumbing a call, 1-833-RIGGO44. Give them a holler, and you won't be sorry you did. Larry?
One last thing,
Okay.
and then I know your subject that you're going to bring up here is really, really interesting, and I don't know if that is a TC placed subject or this. I'm looking forward to that, but don't forget, folks, sign up for the FanDuel and get $5 in total bonuses. Just make your first deposit to get started. You'll get an extra $5 in site credit. Go to FanDuel.com/FFT or download the FanDuel app.
Ladies and gentlemen, stand back and watch the Phoenix rise from the ashes.
Stand back. It's Riggo the Diesel.
All right, thank you, Larry, for that. Please, I'm wondering, though, you must be a mind reader because I don't think you know where I was going to take this, but where do you think I was going to go with it?
Well, I'm reading the format, and you know
Right.
what? Rarely do I ever read anything that Todd sends me. Very rarely, almost never. But it says,
You're a
what
wise
do you,
man, Larry.
What? I'm just joking. He knows. But what do you play for? The game, for the fans? This to me strikes a chord during this specific time when you got guys out there. We've talked about workouts ad nauseum, and if you really want to get a workout in, you'll find a way to do your push-ups and run. You don't need all the fancy gadgets.
Agreed.
And so, Yeah, I hope maybe that's what is that the topic you wanted to talk
Well,
about some of the
I was going
passing
to.
of
We're going
famous
to go.
people?
Well, no, we're going to get into that. But what I was actually wanting to bring up was something I just noticed today is down in Tampa, Brady and some of his, the new quarterback for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and his receivers and some of the running backs have gotten together and basically have worked out. And they found a school, I think it was like an elementary school or something, that was closed down. Nobody was going there. So they were able to go in and, run some pass routes, I guess. Actually, a 2-hour workout, had helmet and pads on. And I'm curious if you've heard of anything like that going on, with the Redskins. If,
Nope.
Dwayne
Haven't heard
Haskins
it.
or
Nope. Haven't heard. And as you say that, I saw some footage on TV before I got on this podcast with you, sir. And I thought I saw Tom Brady wearing a gold jersey on a field somewhere, working out. Like, that don't touch me, I'm wearing a gold
Right.
jersey. Sometimes they're red, right? And I
I
was
think that said
wondering,
orange. It said orange where he was wearing an orange jersey or whatever. So maybe
might
that's
have
what it
been,
looked like.
but I didn't see the story. Now you're telling this to me for the first time. I looked there. I thought that was last year's footage or some other footage. So to me, this is not a level playing field. If they're going to allow one team to do that, especially during the offseason program. Now, if this was during the lead up to training camp where the players are off, right? Sometimes quarterbacks do that. It seems to me very odd that would be allowable, but maybe it is. I don't know.
Well, it's a good subject to debate because on the one hand, I guess if you're caught, then then the commissioner would mete out some kind of a punishment. But, for the players that want to do it, it's all voluntary on their own and they're on their own time. You could make the argument, well, what's to prevent the ambitious guys out there? And certainly we got to put Tom Brady at the top of that list. What's to prevent them from, calling these ad hoc, get-togethers and, going out and working out. And
there's a coach. There's plans. They have meetings. Isn't this why they have these meetings? This is the off-season program. I mean, you could say also, hey, what the heck? Take a little air out of the football. It's no big deal. You could do that, but that's still against the rules. So I don't know what are the rules, I guess.
Well,
I mean,
but I'm thinking even if you had ET or OTAs right now, Larry, there would be nothing that would prevent the players after the OTA to say, you know what, we don't have that route down. Let's get together after dinner tonight and go out. And, in other words, it's what's the difference now of a player working out on his own, or if he happens to be someplace where there's another player around, the two of them are working out in the weight room. I'm just being the devil's advocate here because I do believe that you're right. If there is a group of players, particularly, a quarterback and his wide receivers, because really that's the heart of any offense, and they're getting together now and working out, they're definitely getting an advantage over the teams that aren't able to do these things. So there is your argument, but once again, you get into how does the NFL enforce that? Because then you get into a legal situation where you're telling people, basically you're turning into what they're talking about, how the government's, like the mayor or the governor in Michigan, is basically taking away people's rights. Is the commissioner going to take away the players' rights to meet by themselves and work on things? I don't know. It's kind of one of those questions.
How is it a level playing field? Because in Florida, which has been opened up, and it's got a different climate, right? They talk about the climate and how in hot weather the virus won't do as good. That hasn't been proven yet, but we sure hope so. So there's inherent advantages when you play in Florida right now because they've opened the state. Georgia's been open for a couple of weeks, so so let's get all the Falcons together voluntarily, wink, wink, and we're going to have 11-on-11 drills. Okay, I mean,
right.
I don't know. This is uncharted territory, obviously. So
yeah, and you bring up that, and that's the whole point here. And we can move into what we were originally going to talk about, and that is, at some point in time, baseball has already got, the plans of what they're planning to do to open baseball up, and I believe it's maybe for a July start or something like that. I can't wrap my brain around it. And then to top it all off, which was where we were going a second ago, is that, I would be surprised. But then again, I was reading this where somebody said, well, thanks to, what is it, 9/11, everybody has to go through a metal detector, when way back when everyone, that's never going to, how are people going to do that? Well, guess what? We've all adapted to it. I don't see, but who's to say it can't be done if they can't test everybody that comes into a stadium? In other words, where I'm going with it is from the player standpoint of no fans in the stadium. I'm just playing a game here for television. It's so bizarre. And I was talking to Todd about it yesterday because it reminds me a lot about acting. The parallels are striking because, they say in theater anyway, on stage, that's an actor's medium, because once that curtain goes up, you've rehearsed, you've done, it's on you now at that point. You have to carry the show. They also say that that film, Hollywood and all that stuff, that's a director's medium. Because once you cut the scenes, you do this, and then the director, he edits the film, who knows what you're actually going to end up seeing. Well, now you're turning what once was for the players was a player's, it was a player's medium way back when. Now they're actually, without fans in the stands, they're going to be playing to a TV audience with no direct feedback immediately. And I got to tell you, from a player's perspective, because I got so much energy from the fans. In fact, if it weren't, let me put it this way, Larry. When it came to practicing, and it wouldn't make any difference whether it was track or whatever the event may be, I was not very good. And I don't know what it is, but in my psyche, I can't get to that next level until I don't know what it is, where I've got somebody that's either wanting to see me fail or somebody that wants to see me succeed, but I need witnesses. And that takes me psychologically to a whole different level. And I think that has a little bit to do with why, when finally we got into the playoffs way back when, that I was able to have some pretty decent games, because once again, the stage had gotten bigger yet. They raised the high wire was, instead of 10 feet off the ground, it was 50 feet. They pulled away the net. And I think that from a player standpoint, I can't imagine going out on a field in an empty stadium. And now we got to play the New York Giants. And it's like, okay, here we go. I'm not saying there aren't guys out there that can't do it, because a guy that was just the opposite of that, according to what he said way back when, was Herschel Walker. I don't know if you recall, but when he first came into the league, he was talking about he loved football so much he didn't care if there were people in the stands. Now, I don't know if he literally meant that or not, but I remember way back when going, oh, Herschel, you got a lot to learn. It's all about the fans. I mean, they give you, to me, that was, aside from the money, of course, but that was, the adulation, the strong emotion you get from people, and to be able to affect people by what you're doing on the field. To me, that's what made football. That's what made entertainment, or being an entertainer, attractive to me. You were interacting with thousands of people in that moment down there on the stage or the field, and you were getting that immediate feedback. They'll never get that with a TV crowd. So to me, I would say that it's not that it's a tall task, but then again, I got, as always, for me, the first play of the game was always my worst play, because I was out there kind of going, well, what are we doing here today? And then, somebody like Harry Carson that knocks you on your rear end, you go, oh, okay, I know what we're doing today. And you'd get back into it. But it'll be interesting to see how it unfolds as far as, are they going to allow fans, or are they going to allow a limited number of fans where they can sit apart? I don't know if you have any information on that or not, but
I got several opinions here for you now. Okay, I got 5 things. Number one, not sure about fans, but I sure hope so, because it's obviously, it's a fan sport. And players, number 2, players like you feed off the fans. But as you describe it, it's no fans, but you will have more people watching on television than ever before. So you go back in the old days of live TV, where people became famous by performing on live TV, and what that meant. It's a different type of connection, obviously. So when you get around a camera, maybe you're not doing all the stuff. Maybe the guy's looking in the camera. I noticed this, point 4. I noticed this during the UFC fights the other night that I watched, and some guys would come in and they'd have the ring announcement and the music, and they'd go through their stuff. Some guys would come in and they'd be waving, and there was nobody there. They were putting their arms up and waving to the crowd with nobody there, just by force of habit. Some other guys would stare right at that camera and talk to someone at home and say, look, I'm going to win, and blah, blah, blah. So those guys are playing to their audience, to your point. 5th thing, and then I'll stop. I watched the NASCAR race, and Kevin Harvick won. And I was really struck by what he said after he won. He got out of his car, and they were interviewing him. And he said, you know what? He says, this felt like a regular race until right now, because you could hear a pin drop, and he had just won the race. So it's going to take a lot getting used to, but I'm keeping my fingers crossed that there'll be fans in the stands.
Yeah, you know what, and to a certain extent, I was just thinking as you were saying that, I'm going, well, it might depend on the sport a little bit, because clearly in NASCAR, I'm guessing the fans, how does the driver appreciate fans in NASCAR? You're inside of a car,
they yell,
the noise.
They yell afterwards. They yell,
Okay.
they yell, they scream. I've been to NASCAR races, a bunch of NASCAR races. The fans they cheer like it's a football game,
Right, but I'm telling you, but what I'm saying, Larry, is the drivers are not privy to that. They're in a car,
right,
and they're listening to their pit crew or whatever. I would think that completely, they have no idea what they're doing, as to how it excites the fans, and they don't have that instant feedback. And the other thing you were saying, this is what will be really interesting in football anyway. What's going to happen to all the little what do you call them? After somebody makes a play or in the end zone, the dances and all this. I mean, I would suppose maybe they'll become more important than they ever have, because you'll be playing to John Q at home, right?
There's a million things. Your home field advantage, your signal calling, drawing a team off sides, the cadence of the quarterback. There's so many things you can think of. Icing a kicker, is that going to feel the same if the stadium is empty? I mean, it's going to be kind of weird, right? He'll be there with his own thoughts, and you're going to be able to hear people yelling across the field at him. So I'm excited about one thing, and this is the broadcaster in me. That field judge who stands behind whoever that guy is, I think it's the field judge, stands behind the quarterback. He is mic'd, and a player's mic'd. And on TV, they'll give you some of that, and they'll take it away. And that's how this Omaha stuff comes up, and you hear these guys calling their signals, because they're picking that mic up and they're bringing it down, because they're going to try to control the emotions with the crowd noise. What if there is no crowd noise? I saw one guy said that he expects fake crowd noise to be pumped in. 100% against that. I would love just to hear the natural sound of the football game, the popping of the pads and that ump's mic getting all the. There's probably going to be some beeping going on down there, obviously. There's, obviously words that are going to be said that aren't allowable on television. But nonetheless, I'm excited about that kind of presentation.
Yeah, it's going to be, like you said, one, and if it happens, it's going to be a whole new charter, uncharted waters, I guess, as they like to say, of what's going to happen. And you know what? It's funny, because once something like that happens, you go into it, who knows? There may be people that are very optimistic to see what it's like without fans. There may be people pessimistic, but then you get into it, and obviously, I think everybody will find something that they like about it that they didn't notice before. It's kind of weird how stuff like that works out, because you didn't have time to really focus on that stuff, and that's the other thing that I would think that once you getting used to the idea. The first game or so may be a little different, but all of a sudden then you realize that this is what it is. It's close quarters combat. And, we got to get our job done. Go out there and do your job, as I always like to say.
Yeah, it'll be a different perspective. Going to take care of some business, Riggo.
Okay.
Whether from the sidelines or in the classroom, whether your chalkboard is for X's and O's or vocab words, whether you're a pro football coach or Mrs. Johnson at George Mason High School, the Washington Redskins believe in the power of great teachers. That's why we partner with youth entrepreneurs to bring Washington, D.C. teachers the resources they deserve. In response to the coronavirus pandemic, Youth Entrepreneurs has launched Teach Everywhere, a place for teachers to call home while adjusting to teaching at home. The resource contains distance learning activities resources and tools, and a series of webinars from expert educators. Visit teacheverywhere.org to learn more. And did you know the Redskins are sponsored by Koch Industries? That's K-O-C-H, Koch. Their 67,000 U.S. employees make a lot of things that make game day better. Greener turf, they make that. Stronger paper products for tailgating, they make that. And electronic components in TVs and smart devices so you can watch the Redskins. Yeah, Koch makes that too. See all they make for on and off the field at kochmakesthat.org.
Well, Larry, since the last time we've met, there have been
.com. I'm sorry. That's .com. You think if you put in a website, you put in .org instead of .com, it's going to take you to the right website?
I would say yes. Or it'll make some kind of a correction. But it is.
Koch's a great partner. kochmakesthat.com.
Riggins. He's going to go all the way. Unless Blackwood can catch him, and he can't.
They left the scoreboard up. I remember seeing Redskins 27, Dolphins 17. And it was that moment of truth where I went, damn, I'm a world champion.
John, when he walked, he had a little bop to him. And besides that, he had the booty out there. They nicknamed him Chocolate Chip.
Story time with Riggo.
Well, since the last time we talked, Larry, several people, celebrity types, have passed away. Pepper Rodgers, my old college football coach, and who I don't know, maybe you know the truth of the matter, but how close did he become to becoming one of the head coaches for the Washington Redskins?
Really don't know. That's probably before my time when I was not working for the organization when Pepper was there. But I will say this, had a chance to meet Pepper on several occasions, and what a wonderful guy, what a football guy. I mean, a football man through and through. He spent his whole life in the game of football.
Yep.
And he resided in Reston, Virginia up until his passing. So he obviously liked the area. He became a local after coming to the Redskins as the VP of football operations in the early 2000s. And just a real impressive football guy and a real impressive personality too. He kind of had that magnetic personality that a lot of football coaches present on the field. He had it off the field and on the field. He was kind of a magnetic kind of guy, in my opinion.
Yeah, I always thought of him as he almost was like, he was a showman in all actuality. I remember years ago, and I forget back, it was my sophomore year, and of course, the University of this was his first head coaching job, by the way. He went to Lawrence at the same time I did, but it was his second year when I was able to play. I couldn't play my freshman year, but I remember we went out, and he would lead the team out onto the field. I forget what game it was, but damned if he didn't do a somersault. Runs out ahead of the team. And, we would do that forward roll. We would do that in warm-ups in practice, that would want them to come up, and come up and run in place and all that stuff. That's what Pepper did when we were coming out to get everybody fired up. The crowd loved it. I mean, that's what I'm saying. He was he was always the guy that had a quick comment for something. I believe years ago we went up to Nebraska and got thrashed by them, and I think his comment was, "I'd rather go to Alaska than to Nebraska." So he was one of those guys that was always had something on the tip of his tongue, and it was I was sorry to see him pass away. And then another longtime broadcaster and basically a pioneer as far as women in sports, Phyllis George. And I've always thought of her as being several years older than me. Turns out she's 2 months older than I am. She was born in 1949, only 70 years old, just passed away recently. And I don't recall, did you hear? I can't remember. I must have read it, what she passed away from. But
no,
it was a blood disorder. It was a blood disorder.
I know she marry the governor of the state of Kentucky somewhere along the way, and
yes, she did.
And she moved on. And you're right. Did she ever interview you back in the day, John?
No, I wasn't a big enough fish.
How about Jimmy the Greek? Jimmy the Greek ever interview you?
No, I never did. Like I said, I was still a struggling actor back then. I hadn't made it. But she was, and you see all the women that were in the sport. Leslie Visser was one. I think Storm what's her first name with ESPN?
Hannah Storm is
Hannah
still
Storm.
rolling.
All
Yep.
credited her with basically being the pioneer of opening up the door for women in sport. And she, Phyllis George admitted herself, she said she wasn't particularly, what do you call it? I mean, I'm sure she was a sports fan, but didn't necessarily know a lot about it. But she came from it, and I think that's what made her so effective. She came in from a human angle instead of trying to pretend that she knew all about sports. She was asking people, about probably growing up and the things that, the human interest angle basically is what she brought to it. And then
Former Miss America.
I think what?
You know what? Yeah, I'm not sure. It might be. But you know what? It really struck me when I got your rundown, because I was not aware that Eddie Haskell had passed away. I was not aware of that. And that was my favorite character on that show. And he played such a unique character. I mean, what's his real life name was Ken Osmond. And of course, this might be way before a lot of people's time, right? I mean, people watching this, they might not know what we're talking about.
Well, those reruns are still on Leave It to Beaver. I think you can still see them occasionally. I'm like you in the sense that, and I didn't realize, but then maybe because his mom wanted, what I read about him, that his mom had always wanted to try to get him into acting somehow. So he was a child actor. I think his first role, I think he was, I want to say 9, but he might have even been younger than that. And so they cast, they had the casting call for this character, Eddie Haskell, on Leave It to Beaver, and it was a one-off, just going to be on the show one time. I guess when he got on and he portrayed Eddie Haskell, he did such a great job that all of a sudden he became a regular on the show. I think out of 200 and some shows, he was in over 100 of them. And the other thing that I noticed is that people, family and friends, they all said he was just the opposite of what you saw in real life. The guy that he portrayed, well, he ended up becoming a police officer, an LA policeman. And a lot of that was because he couldn't get any acting jobs. I mean, Max Baer comes to mind, who was Jethro Bodine. And of course, Henry Winkler has had success beyond Fonz. But really, there have been some characters on television, and you think about it. I mean, you go Jethro, you go Fonz, you go Eddie Haskell. You talk about iconic characters in TV programming. I'm telling you, I think those are the top 3. I mean, I got to believe there's other people as well, but when you talk about characters, those guys are kind of got a niche all to themselves. And like I said, I think that Henry Winkler is the only one that could, had life after doing what was it?
Arthur Fonzarelli. Arthur Fonzarelli, Happy Days. And you know what? You almost have the Mount Rushmore of characters. And how would you, for those that have never seen Leave It to Beaver, and obviously, that is kind of before my time, but I watched it growing up as reruns, just like Three Stooges. So how would you describe the Eddie Haskell character?
I think unctuous would be the word that would come, and smarmy. I mean, he was so good at it because he would walk in. Yeah, I mean, he would walk in and he'd go, "Oh, hi, Mrs. Cleaver. That dress you're wearing is very becoming on you." Always flattering the adults. And as soon as they were gone, he like turned into Al Capone. He was up to, up to no good. I mean, that's the kind of, he just turned it on a dime, but he was very convincing. And none of the adults knew what Eddie was really all about by the way he portrayed himself on television. Yeah, he was.
Didn't we all have one friend we all had one Eddie Haskell everybody has a friend like Eddie Haskell. There's every bunch has one.
I've got
smart ass guy,
Right. I've got a friend that I texted yesterday when I found this out because his nickname is Eddie Haskell. And I texted him and said, "Hey," I said, "Rich, the real Eddie Haskell caught the westbound today." And he got back to me. But yeah, you're 100% right, Todd. Everybody knows the Eddie Haskell, maybe more than one.
Everybody knows an Eddie Haskell and a Potsy Weber.
Yeah.
That's another one. Don't know a lot of Fonzarellis, though, to be honest with you. Nowadays, I don't know many guys like that.
Back when I was growing up, there were all kinds of Fonzarellis. It's funny, the black leather jacket, that motorcycle jacket, obviously probably spawned by the movie, what was it, Rebel Without a Cause or whatever, with
James Dean.
Was that James
Dean? Marlon Brando too. Yeah.
There was another movie with Marlon Brando. And then Fred Willard, he passed away as well, which is another comic. And all the comics that I've seen, and I thought he was a tremendous talent guy, but I think everybody that actually was he was a comic because everybody was, Helen DeGeneres, Jimmy Kimmel. I mean, it goes on and on about what a great comic he was. And another person that it was a bad week for few celebrities anyway.
Sure was.
But we wish,
you know what? I see the
our
trees in my neighborhood are blowing. I don't know what it's like down in Cabin John, but I think there's a storm coming through here. And with our bad connection here today, over the last hour, I'm recommending that we move on to episode 81 next week.
I will second that motion, Larry, and I will see you next Tuesday. Guys, Stevie, thank you. Todd, good to see you or to hear from you. And we'll see everybody next Tuesday, hopefully, or whenever you tune us in.
Even though COVID-19 poses an unprecedented challenge, you can count on Novak to deliver reliable power and to help in other ways. Novak.com offers tips to save energy while spending more time at home. Novak customers can monitor their energy use online, as well as pay bills through the website or by phone. And anyone can donate to help neighbors in need through Operation Roundup. Novak, power you can count on.
The Department of Veterans Affairs has the honor of providing care to those who have served this country in uniform. Today, the VA is on the front lines of the battle against the coronavirus, and we need your help. We are looking for medical professionals at every level. I hope that you will consider joining our team, either temporarily or permanently. To learn more, go to va.gov/join us.